Hi, I'm Natalia. And yes, my parents locked me and my newborn out in a thunderstorm. I knocked, I begged. My baby was freezing. They looked through the window, smiling, and said, "Let the rain deal with the useless one." That night broke something inside me, but it also built something stronger. They thought silence would bury me. Instead, it exposed them, the lies, the stolen money, the perfect family mask they wore at church. So now I ask you, what kind of family chooses reputation over blood and thinks they'll get away with it? The driveway curved like a memory I had almost forgotten, lined with gravel that shifted under the tires, white lanterns strung in even intervals, glowing faintly yellow against the gathering dusk. Their light was soft, almost welcoming, but I knew better than to mistake it for invitation. I parked at the edge of the lawn, the air inside the car heavy with the scent of damp upholstery and spring rain rolling in from the west. My toddler, Aster, stirred in the back seat. Her lashes fluttered, soft against her cheeks, her little body slack with sleep. I turned the engine off, and silence poured in through the open window, broken only by the chirp of crickets and the faint sound of laughter floating across the lawn from the great tent strung with fairy lights. For a moment I sat still, hands resting on the steering wheel, heart thudding with the rhythm of a truth I had carried too long. On the passenger seat lay the folder, the one I had guarded like a secret, tucked between layers of my past. Inside, legal documents, contracts, deeds, proof, papers so old, so familiar, I could hardly believe I still had them. They had survived moves, heartbreaks, even my own doubt. Tonight, they survived to be seen. I opened the car door, gravel crunching beneath my shoes as I stepped into the damp air. The scent of earth rose strong, mingled with the sweetness of magnolia drifting from somewhere beyond the lawn. I walked around to the back door, unbuckled Aster, and lifted her into my arms. She whimpered softly, but didn't wake fully, her cheek pressing into the crook of my neck, small fists curled. At the entrance to the tent, a cousin I barely recognized stood with a clipboard, posture stiff, eyes shifting between me and the list in his hand. He tilted his head politely, but the message was clear before he spoke. "Not on the list, Natalia," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle, final. I adjusted Aster on my hip, my arms aching. "I brought my baby," I said, trying to steady the tremor in my tone. "I belong here." His expression didn't soften. He glanced down the list once more, then back at me. "Private event. You should have been invited, but—" He stepped aside, letting another guest through without hesitation. Someone else's laughter spilled forward into the night as they entered. I stayed where I was. The refusal burned like salt on an open wound, but I forced my breath steady. My eyes lifted toward the glowing tent. Inside, tables stretched beneath chandeliers and strings of warm lights. White tablecloths, silverware catching gleams, floral arrangements blooming in extravagant bursts of color. My designs, my work. Every detail bore the fingerprints of my planning. The hours spent choosing fabrics, arranging stems, perfecting spaces. Yet here I stood, shut out, holding my child against the spring chill. I swallowed hard and walked forward. The grass was damp beneath my shoes, soft with dew. At the far side of the tent, I spotted her, my mother, standing tall in a dress the color of pearls, her hands folded over a wine glass. She was speaking to someone, smiling that tight smile she always wore when she wanted to seem gracious. When her eyes met mine, the smile faltered, and then vanished entirely. "Mom," I called softly, almost pleading. She crossed her arms before I could finish. "This isn't for you, Natalia." Her words cut sharper than any raised voice, sharp enough to silence the laughter near us. Heads turned. Forks paused. For a moment, the tense hum quieted to a hush. I froze. Aster's warm weight pressed against me. My daughter stirred, tiny fists clenching, sensing the tension. I rocked her gently, instinctively, wanting to shield her from the coldness radiating from my own blood. Behind my mother, Callista stepped into the light. She was framed by the glow of the lanterns, her wineglass lifted in a casual gesture. She smiled, but it wasn't kindness. It was triumph, a half smile that said, "I won." The bitter taste rose in my throat. Aster whimpered softly, her body trembling. I hushed her with a whisper, kissed her hair, held her close. No one stepped forward to help. No one reached out, though they could all see. Silence pressed in like a wall, heavy and deliberate. Plates clattered softly in the background, whispers spread like wildfire. My name slipped from someone's lips across the room, whispered like an afterthought, as if I were a stranger at my own family's table. I took a step back, shoes sinking slightly into the moist grass. I wanted to speak, to remind them of everything I had built, not just the decorations they admired tonight, but the quiet strength, the persistence, the sacrifices. But the words caught in my throat, weighed down by years of being overlooked, silenced, erased. A memory stabbed sharp. My mother's voice when I told her I was pregnant. "No man, no future, Natalia." She had said it like scripture, repeated it until it burned into my bones. At the time, I believed her. I believed belonging was conditional, that my worth hinged on someone else's approval. Now, standing in damp grass with my child in my arms, I realized that approval had always been a mirage. They never recognized me. They never wanted to. Callista's smirk was a mirror I hadn't asked for, reflecting the years I wasted trying to earn a love that was always transactional. I thought if I worked harder, shone brighter, gave more, they would finally see me. But her eyes told me the truth. They never would. I turned. My arms tightened around Aster. My feet carried me back down the gravel drive toward the car, each step heavier than the last. Mud clung to the hem of my dress, streaking it with brown. My breath came ragged, but I kept my chin up, refusing to let them see me falter. At the car, I opened the back door and settled Aster gently into her seat. She yawned, blinking at me, then drifted back to sleep, her little chest rising and falling with the peace I wished I could feel. I glanced at the passenger seat. The folder glowed faintly in the lantern light spilling across the driveway. Its edges were worn, but its contents were unshakable. Ownership papers, financial statements, design contracts, records of every hour and ounce I had poured into what they now claimed as their own. I slid into the driver's seat, the rain beginning in light drops against the windshield. Aster sighed softly in the back, her small fingers curled into the blanket. I stared at the folder, at the proof, at the life they tried to erase. Rain quickened, drumming on the roof, the wipers sweeping across in rhythmic arcs. The glow of the tent blurred in the distance, laughter muffled by storm and glass. I gripped the steering wheel, steady now. My voice broke the silence, quiet but sharp. "Let's see how useless I really am." The words filled the car like a vow. Let's see how useless I really am. By the time I closed the door behind me, night had swallowed the small rental apartment whole. The rain had followed me home from the estate, drumming gently against the windows, streaking the glass in blurred rivers. I set Aster in her crib. She stirred once, tiny fists curling, then fell into a soft rhythm of sleep. Her breaths, steady and fragile, filled the quiet like a lullaby. I peeled off my mud-stained shoes and left them by the rug, pressing my bare feet into the worn threads until I felt grounded. The dress I had worn earlier lay across the couch, its hem streaked with grass stains, lace torn where it had snagged in the damp lawn. It looked like evidence of a crime scene, except the crime was betrayal, not violence. I moved toward the kitchen counter, where my phone sat in the dim light. The screen was black, but I knew what waited. I picked it up, thumb hesitating over the button. One press, and there it was. Notifications stacked one over the other, buzzing like bees in a hive I could not silence. Dozens, then more. I sat at my little wooden table, the same one where I sketched dresses and tallied invoices, and scrolled. My pulse quickened when I saw the first post. Lindsay had uploaded a video clip, Callista under the tent's fairy lights, twirling in a gown that shimmered like moonlight. The comments poured in, glowing, uncritical, fawning. "Paris Boutique Original," the caption said. "Straight from Paris." Paris. I blinked hard. Every stitch, every seam had been mine. I remembered the night I stayed awake until 2 in the morning, my back aching, sewing that hem by hand because Callista wanted just one more adjustment. I remembered pressing each button with care, sketching every line in a notebook still tucked in a box in my cabinet. I'd chosen that lace myself, ordered swatches with money I didn't have, convinced it would lead to gratitude. And now, erased in a hashtag, dressed in filters and lies. I swallowed hard, the taste bitter. My fingers hovered over the phone screen. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It simply hollowed me out from the inside, as if someone had taken the marrow of my identity and stamped another name over it. The memory pulled me back, pregnant, belly swelling under the light of my sewing lamp. Callista asleep in the next room. I had believed in what I was making then, believed that stitches and sketches could secure a future, not just for me, but for the child I carried. I thought one day she would thank me. That thank you never came. Only smirks, only theft. My hand trembled as I typed out a message. "Nice dress," I wrote to Callista. "Seems Paris finds good taste when others snatch it away." I hit send. The message delivered. No reply. The silence that followed felt heavier than any insult. I set the phone down and looked across the room at my reflection in the narrow mirror propped against the wall. Dim lighting caught tired eyes, shadows under them deeper than makeup could hide. I whispered, barely audible, "They don't just erase me. They wear me and pretend I never existed." Something inside me hardened. I shuffled to the filing cabinet in the corner and pulled out a cardboard box, its edges frayed from years of moving. Inside, sketchbooks, fabric receipts, swatches taped to yellowing paper, proof of every design that passed through my hands before it passed into someone else's spotlight. I carried the box to the desk and lit a candle. Its flame flickered, casting long shadows across the scattered papers. This wasn't nostalgia. This was evidence. I sifted through pages, fingers brushing notes I'd written in the margins, measurements, thread counts, late-night thoughts scribbled between phone calls and sleepless nights, receipts from fabric shops, payments I made in cash to avoid questions, labels I printed myself, all the quiet, hidden labor they had stolen in plain sight. One by one, I arranged them on the desk, sketches in a row, receipts lined like soldiers, swatches pinned beside notes. The papers formed a map of my effort, my truth. In the candlelight, it almost looked like art, but it was more than art. It was a defense. "If they want a show," I whispered to myself, "I'll give them more than appearances." My phone buzzed again, breaking the moment. I reached for it, half expecting more poison from family, or silence. Instead, a client's message lit the screen. "Loved the photo shoot. Do you have something else for me to see?" For a breath, I wanted to ignore it, to shrink away, to hide. But business doesn't wait for wounds to heal. Business keeps moving, with or without you. I typed back, "Yes, I'll send something tomorrow." My heart steadied as I set the phone down. Outside, rain struck harder against the windows, streaking glass with blurred lines. Shadows danced on the wall as the candle burned lower. I uploaded my original sketch of the stolen dress into a private digital folder. Fingers hovered over the keyboard before labeling it, Exhibit A, Callista's Fall. The words landed sharp. For a moment, my chest ached. Then I typed one more line beneath the file name. "You started this." The room was silent. Only the rain, only Aster's soft murmur from her crib. I wrapped my hands around a chipped mug of chamomile tea, its steam curling against my face. Warmth seeped into my palms, even as cold resolve settled in my bones. They thought I was invisible. They thought silence meant defeat. But tonight, I began to build a voice they couldn't mute. The rain is louder now than my own heart. I turn the car off the street and park it halfway down my parents' white picket fence driveway, knowing I'll have to walk through the storm. Lightning cracks overhead, illuminating the dark wooden siding of their house. I clutch Aster tighter, her head buried in my shoulder. Every breath she takes is a whisper in the wind. I lift the folder from the passenger seat, the one with ownership papers, past contracts with my handwriting on every page, proof I built what they pretend is theirs. I approach the front porch, My boots splash through puddles. I grip the doorknob, cold metal bristling under my fingers. I knock. Once. Then again. Curtains sway behind the glass. A silence thicker than the storm answers me. A flash reveals my mother standing by the window. Her lips curl. She's always had that look. Too perfect. Too in command. "Mom!" I call, voice trembling but clear over the rain. No response. Just the door. Hands pressed against wood. Finally, a slam. Within seconds, the lock clicks. She slams it shut. The sound echoes through my ribs, a betrayal that feels physical. I stagger back, rain pelting my shoulders, soaking into my jacket. Aster starts to cry. I press her closer. From behind the glass, my mother's voice carries with deadly calm. "Let the rain deal with the useless one." The wind rips around me. Droplets sift through the porch roof's crevices, stinging my eyes. I bang on the door, but there's no giving. Thunder rolls overhead. I slip, knees buckling on a slick plank. Rough wood scrapes my palms. I try to rise, but the world tilts. Weight of water, hurt, fatigue all pressing down. Aster sobs against me. Inside, I see the glow of television, laughter, echoing. My father in a blazer, Callista leaning in to whisper something. They treat the storm like a show. I stagger to my feet, teeth chattering. "You said I was worthless," I whisper. "You said I'm nothing." Rain cascades down my face, blurring vision. I wrap my coat tighter around Aster, using my shoulder to shield her. I want to knock harder, charge inside, break glass. Everything inside me wants to erupt. But I stay. I stay for her. My knees give out. I sink to the porch, platform cold beneath me. Aster's body trembles in my arms. I look up through the window, my mother glancing away, face unmoving. Callista's silhouette flickers, then disappears behind curtains. No one opens the door. Memories wash in. Me, pregnant, sewing in small rooms, my stitchings, my hopes. I remember choosing fabric, ordering lace, pressing seams late into nights. I thought those pieces of cloth were my lifeline with them, my proof I belonged. But tonight, cloth won't shield me. Only truth will. I whisper, voice raw. You don't get to decide what I become. My own reflection in the window stares back. Wet hair plastered to my forehead, eyes burning, cheeks streaked. I cradle Aster, her hand clutching my collar. She refuses to let go, tiny fingers digging in. Lightning arcs, thunder shakes the windows. I slide off the porch, mud sucking at my boots. Rain runs down my back. I limp toward the car. The cold metal door handle stings. I pause, breath ragged, then turn the lock. Inside, warmth is thin, but it's safety. Aster settles, drenched but safe in my arms. I close the folder, cover its top with a leather strap. Contracts, receipts, my name inked in margins, faint but mine. Headlights appear. Mrs. Halverson's car rolls up the gravel. She fumbles with the rain-splattered door. I open my own as she steps out, rain dripping off her coat. "Sweetheart, what happened?" she asks, voice soft but firm. I stare ahead, rain plastering the windshield. I whisper, "They left us here to drown." The car tires hiss across the slick driveway. I pull in front of Mrs. Halverson's house and sit for a moment, engine idling, rain tapping the windshield. Aster yawns softly in the back seat. I lift her little blanket to our chests, let the warmth between us settle, try to ease the cold inside my bones. I open the door, stepping into Mrs. Halverson's porch light, the sweet scent of chamomile drifting out. She meets me at the door, arms open, holding thick towels. "You look frozen," she says. "Come in, please." I cross the threshold, slipping off wet shoes. Damp socks leave footprints on her old rug. Aster still in my arms, I let Mrs. Halverson wrap us both in heavy towels, her hands gentle. She leads me to a chair near the fireplace, flames soft in the hearth, flickering shadows dancing across the walls. She disappears into the kitchen for tea. I sit, shivering, listening to the quiet comfort of her home. Old furniture, mismatched throw pillows, shelves lined with books I've never heard of. It's warm, safe. She returns with 2 mugs. The steam curls up into my face. I lift the rim, grateful for its heat. Aster stretches, blinking. Here, she says, handing me a blanket. No mother should be out in that. She doesn't ask. She already knows. I close my eyes and let tears that I've held back fall. She sets her mug down, drapes the blanket over my shoulders. We sit in silence. The storm rages beyond windows. Rain beats like a drum against the glass panes. I sip my tea. The burn of it cuts through the cold. I let myself be small for a moment. No expectations, just survival. After a long pause, Mrs. Halverson shifts in the chair opposite me. Her voice is soft. I lost a daughter once, she begins. Married someone frowned upon. Family turned their backs. I know what it's like to be unchosen. Her eyes flick toward Aster, then back to me. Sometimes, your blood family fails. You build a new one. Her words land like stones in my chest. I think of all the years I begged for a place, begged for a nod, for a moment of recognition. I never heard you belong. Tonight, I'm hearing it. I glance at the folder on the floor, the legal document still nestled inside. My designs, contracts, receipts. It's proof heavy enough to sink any lie. I wrap my teacup in both hands. Warmth spreads from fingertips to heart. I tell her, I think I've spent my life trying to prove I wasn't invisible. I designed things, built plans, stayed up nights. I did everything I thought family meant. My voice cracks. I thought if I made something beautiful enough, they'd see me. Mrs. Halverson nods, as if she understands the weight of years. She doesn't say, I told you so. She simply cups my hand. You were always here, Natalia. And that means something. That night, I lie in the guest room, Aster asleep beside me. Rain's lullaby outside, the house warm, safe. For first time since the porch, I feel like I might breathe without holding my chest. I pull out my journal, leather cover soft under my fingers, light from the bedside lamp. I write not of dreams, but of plans. Design orders long delayed, sketches hidden away, receipts I saved, contacts I avoided. I plan small steps, send inquiry again, reach out to clients who once trusted me, save money, build evidence. Not because I want revenge, but because I deserve justice. I stop, staring at words I wrote. They tried to erase me, but Mrs. Halverson reminded me. I still exist. My pen hovers. Morning light creeps behind curtains. Soft thirst pulls me awake. Aster stirs. I rise, careful not to wake her too harshly. Shoes on, I carry a mug of tea back into the sitting room. Mrs. Halverson is already there, reading an old photograph album. She hands me a photo. 2 little girls in sundresses, smiles wide, me and Callista. I trace the photograph's edges. I barely remember that day. Callista in white, me in blue flowers. I said something then. I complimented her, and she kissed me on the forehead. I believe I was happy. A knock at the door startles both of us. Mrs. Halverson sets down the photo. I wipe tea on my pajama sleeve. She opens the door. A neighbor stands there in mud-splash boots, holding a phone, rain still dripping off her umbrella edge. Miss Natalia. Your sister's just posted something, she says. Her voice breaks. She holds up the phone, screen lit up. The same dress, Callista in filters and fancy lighting, tagged Paris Haute Couture. I lean forward, breath catching. I want to look away, but I don't. Chapter 5. The curtain falls. Twice. I didn't even blink when the notification buzzed again. Mrs. Halverson stood just a few feet away, holding her gardening gloves in one hand, trying to make sense of my stillness. I sat at the edge of her floral-upholstered couch, thumb hovering over my phone screen. There it was, Callista's latest post. A professionally edited image of her leaning on a marble staircase, dress flowing around her like fog. The caption read, Family first, always. And below it, comments, hearts, praise in long strings. Style icon. Straight from Paris runway? Such a close, beautiful family. Blessings. My sister had tagged the post with Paris Haute Couture. I stared unblinking, my body tense. The same dress I hand-stitched while pregnant, on her body, flaunted, claimed, celebrated. I didn't even care about the lie anymore. What broke me was the timeline. That same week she posted it, my father had looked me in the eye and said he couldn't spare $200 for baby formula. Said things were tight. I had nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, told him it was okay. I'd manage. That night, I scraped together coins and coupons and tried to stretch powdered milk across 3 days. And now this, Callista draped in silk I cut, posing like the Queen of Unity. I opened my photo folder without thinking. My fingers scrolled automatically until I found it. Astor's onesie from that night in the storm, still damp and crumpled. I had saved it without reason. Maybe it was proof, maybe it was pain. I uploaded the image to my own feed. No filter, no makeup, just that soggy, wrinkled fabric with a caption. Some families close the door and pull the curtain, others open their arms. I hit post. At first, silence, then a ping. Another. A wave. Old classmates I hadn't spoken to in years commented with hearts, quiet messages asking if I was okay. A woman named Cheryl from high school. I always knew something didn't add up. You were never the problem. One of my former teachers even reached out. I'm so sorry, Natalia. This isn't what you deserved. I didn't reply to any of them. I just read, scrolled, let the words wash over me like cool air after suffocating in heat. Each message a stitch, tightening the fabric of my own clarity. Mrs. Halverson came back into the room holding a plate of warm toast and jam. She set it on the coffee table and gave me that knowing look. You don't owe anyone an explanation, she said, sitting beside me. But if you want to tell your story, people are ready to hear it. That night, I sat at her little kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen. Astor slept upstairs in a borrowed crib. The ceiling fan hummed quietly overhead. I began writing, not poetry or pain, but details, hard ones, dates, amounts, conversations. The day my mother told me, no man, no worth. The night my sister borrowed my design for fun. Receipts, emails, screenshots, a timeline, a case. I wasn't just speaking, I was building a foundation. You're smart, girl, Mrs. Halverson said, refilling her tea. It's about time they saw it. The next day, as I folded clean laundry in the living room, another message lit up on my phone. This one came from Liz, an old college roommate who had distanced herself after I got pregnant. Her message read, I'm in a private group Callista runs. Thought you might want to see this. She attached a screenshot, a dozen text bubbles between Callista, my mother, and several of their friends. Snide comments, dismissive tones, but one line stood out, written by Callista herself. If she goes public with this, we're done. I stared at it for a long time, not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. I closed the front door behind me, and the weight of every stare still clung to me like damp air. The lawn stretched before me, slick from the earlier drizzle. The storm had passed, but its residue lingered. Puddles glittered in the dying light, gravel shone dark and wet, the evening air cool enough to raise goosebumps on my arms. I paused at the edge of the porch, the strap of Astor's car seat cutting into my shoulder, and forced myself to draw in a long breath. It came shaky, uneven. Behind me, the house loomed with its manicured shrubs and polished porch lights, every detail screaming of the image they wanted the world to see. But I knew the truth that cracked underneath, and tonight, I wasn't leaving without pressing it into their hands. The screenshot burned in my jacket pocket, its words etched into my memory. If she goes public with this, we're done. I pulled the jacket tighter around my body, grounding myself in the chill. I reminded myself of Mrs. Halverson's advice, her voice echoing in my mind like a steady drumbeat. Your truth matters. Say it out loud. Don't let them bury it again. The sidewalk gave way to gravel, and I stepped carefully around puddles. My shoes were still damp from the walk over, but each step was purposeful. My heart pounded, sharp and steady, a reminder that this was no longer about fear. It was about refusal to be erased. The porch was already occupied. My father stood by a potted plant, watering can in hand, though most of the water missed and spilled over the wood. His shirt clung damply to his back, evidence of the earlier drizzle. My mother fussed with cushions on the wicker chairs, hands moving too deliberately, as if rehearsing a performance. And there was Lindsay, lounging at the railing, phone in hand. Her laughter carried, brittle and sharp, until she caught sight of me. Her lips faltered into a thin line. The air shifted. Even the neighbor's dog across the street went quiet. I stopped 10 feet short of the porch. The world around me felt strangely muted. Cars down the street hummed like whispers. Wind stirred the wet leaves overhead. But all I heard was my own pulse. Aster stirred faintly beneath her raincoat, tiny fists curling. Her warmth pressed against me. I kissed the crown of her head and steadied myself. When I spoke, it wasn't loud. I didn't need volume. I let the calm cut sharper than shouting. I came here today because I won't stop telling the truth, I said. I won't be erased. The words settled heavy in the damp air. For a moment, no one moved. My father tilted his head, raised the watering can like it weighed nothing, and snorted. You? With your baby? His voice was sharp, cold. You really think you can shame us? My mother folded her arms, posture tight. Still playing the victim, Natalia. You'd think by now you'd stop. Her tone was practiced, polished for the neighbors listening from porches and windows. Lindsay took a step forward, her designer shoes sinking slightly into the damp porch rug. She glanced at me, then at her phone, thumb poised like she was deciding whether to record. Her smirk was smaller than usual, but still present. And then my father spoke again, cutting deeper than he knew. You're just a stray with a bastard child. The words hit like stones. My face burned hot, my ears rang. I tightened my hold on Aster as she stirred, whimpering at the sudden noise. Mother added for the audience beyond us, loud enough to carry across the street. She wants pity. That's all she's ever wanted. A ripple of quiet passed through the street. Somewhere nearby, a neighbor stopped mowing. Another leaned out from her upstairs window, pretending to adjust a plant while clearly watching. I could feel the shift, the hesitation in the air. They were listening. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I reached inside my jacket and pulled out the folder I'd carried all this way. Its weight steadied me. The contracts, the invoices, the sketches, the messages. Proof. My proof. I held it against my chest, fingers firm. Here's what I am, I said, louder now, voice cutting across the lawn. Someone who shows up even when it's cold. Someone who built what you pretend to own. You can laugh. Maybe people will laugh with you. But I'm done hiding. My father tried to chuckle, dismissive. You're nothing without us. I let the silence stretch, let his words hang until they felt sour in the damp air. Then I replied, exactly. That's what makes me something. My voice carried. Aster whimpered again as thunder rolled in the distance, a low growl of the storm returning. I rocked her gently, pressing my lips to her soft hair. My steps turned me away from the porch, down the slick driveway. Gravel crunched, mud splashed. Don't walk away when I'm talking to you, my father called, but his voice cracked. My mother's words followed, thin and breaking apart in the space between us. I didn't turn back. By the time I reached the car, rain had begun again. Light drops at first, then heavier, pattering steady on the roof as I opened the door. I placed Aster in her seat, fastening her straps as she blinked sleepily. My eyes caught the folder lying on the passenger seat, edges glowing faintly under the street lamp. I slid into the driver's seat, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the folder. I could still hear their voices echoing in my head, their dismissals, their smirks. But layered over it was something else, the silence of the neighborhood watching, because the silence didn't stay silent. That night, long after I carried Aster inside and tucked her into bed, long after I changed into clean clothes and sank into the couch, my phone lit up again. A video was spreading, shaky, grainy, caught on a neighbor's phone. My own voice, clear despite the rain, echoed back at me. Exactly. That's what makes me something. The clip was short, but it was enough to stir comments, shares, reposts. People who didn't know me passed it along with words like strength and finally said what needed saying. I sat in the dark, the glow of the phone illuminating my face. Fear pressed against me, sharp as glass. But beneath it, something else stirred. Determination. The line had been drawn. I didn't know what would come next, only that this time, I wasn't going quietly. The sound woke me before the light did. My phone rattled across the nightstand like a bird desperate to escape a cage. Its buzz came in waves, angry, relentless, until I finally reached out, eyes half closed, and grabbed it. The glow of the screen pierced the dim room. An avalanche of notifications. Neighbors, classmates, strangers. All of them sharing the same clip. Me, standing in the rain, Aster tucked against me, voice steady despite the storm. Exactly. That's what makes me something. The words echoed back from every repost, every caption, every headline. Viral. For a moment, my heart pounded so loudly, I thought it might wake Aster. She shifted softly in her crib beside me, a sigh escaping her lips as her little hands curled against the blanket. I scooped her up, holding her close, her warmth grounding me. My throat was raw, not from shouting, but from holding back the weight of so many years. Morning light seeped through the blinds, painting the room in pale stripes. I leaned back against the headboard, the city still muted, and let the silence stretch before answering anything. My chest rose and fell in rhythm with Aster's, the steady drum of her breathing reminding me to stay rooted. Mrs. Halverson's house next door was still, curtains drawn. She must have still been asleep, but outside, the world wasn't sleeping anymore. The world was watching. I dressed slowly. Jeans, a cardigan pulled tight around me. My hands were steady, though my mind raced. I didn't scroll. I didn't reply. Not yet. I let the storm rage without me for a while, just listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the soft patter of rain easing against the glass. Finally, I opened my laptop. Tabs filled the screen, comments, messages, media requests flooding in faster than I could read. One journalist's email caught my eye. I'd like to talk, get your side. The cursor hovered over reply. Part of me wanted to slam the laptop shut, to hide until the noise burned itself out. But another part, the louder part, knew hiding was exactly what they always expected me to do. By mid-morning, daylight carried me into my mother's church, digitally, through live stream. The screen filled with pews lined in shadow and stained glass light. A banner hung behind the altar, Family First. And there was my mother, holding up a framed photo of me as a child, her voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. "We tried our best," she said. Her words echoed through the hollow room. Callista stood beside her, wine-red lipstick gleaming, smile sweet, but eyes hard as stone. Lindsay recorded the scene on her phone, posting it immediately with a caption, "We stand together." I watched, sick rising in my stomach. The hypocrisy was a taste I could never wash away. They hadn't stood beside me when it mattered. But here, under bright lights and sympathetic applause, they paraded the image of devotion. I slammed the laptop shut. My breath came shallow. Back at my desk, I pulled out a stack of yellow legal pads. Pen to paper, I wrote everything I could remember. Timestamps, messages, who posted what, when the smear campaign began. I scribbled down their captions. My daughter is unstable. She always wanted attention. Lies woven into pretty sentences. I wasn't writing out of revenge, I was archiving proof. Every omission, every twist, every calculated smear, I refused to let them erase me quietly. Still, I wasn't passive. That afternoon, I posted a photo of my own. Me in my workroom, Aster on my back in a sling, fabric scraps scattered around me, hands stained with dye and thread. No makeup, no filters, just truth. The caption read, "This is who I am. Tired? Yes. But trying." The comments came fast. "You deserve respect. Thank you for being real." Support flowed in waves that steadied me, but anger followed too. My mother shared old grainy photos, me standing at a grocery checkout with empty bags, stretching bills as far as I could. Her captions whispered judgment without saying it outright. Callista sent texts to the family group chat, screenshots leaked quickly. "Why is she making this about us? And another, some people will do anything for attention. The community fractured down the middle. Some church members echoed my mother, shaking their heads. Others whispered behind closed doors. But strangers, neighbors, old classmates, teachers reached out with kindness. An elderly neighbor messaged, "I never realized how strong you always were." My old high school teacher wrote, "Speak loudly now. They cannot erase what you built." For a brief moment, I believed the tide was shifting. Until something worse appeared. A forged document began circulating online. A so-called report claiming I had once left Astor home alone for hours while I went out partying. My chest tightened when I saw it, lies so bold they scorched. My breath caught as I imagined strangers believing it, and then, an envelope in my mailbox. The initials on it made my blood run cold. CPS, Child Protective Services. I stood frozen at the kitchen table, the letter in both hands. My pulse roared in my ears. Astor babbled from the living room, oblivious, her toys clattering softly against the rug. They were trying to take her from me. They weren't just smearing my name anymore. They wanted to strip me of the only pure thing I had left. Mrs. Halverson found me like that, sitting at the table, pale, shaking. She touched my hand, firm and warm. "They can't," she said. Her eyes locked on mine, steady as stone. "Not if you hold your story together. Not if you stand." Her words steadied me. My breath slowed. I looked down at the letter again, fingers curling around it. Panic pressed against me, but I forced myself to stand, to move, to act. I dialed the number from my notes, the lawyer Noor had helped me find. When the line connected, my voice was quiet, but sure. "Yes, I'm ready to go public. The full story, with documents." When I hung up, the rain began again, faint at first, then steady. I stood by the window, watching drops streak across the glass. Astor had fallen asleep in my arms, her small weight a reminder of why I couldn't retreat. I felt fear, but stronger than fear was resolve. The viral storm had cracked the silence wide open, and I was stepping through. Morning arrives gently, softer than I expected, the kind of gray light that filters through blinds and spreads across the room like a cautious hand. For a few minutes, I let myself stay wrapped in the quilt, listening to the quiet hum of traffic somewhere below my window. The city is waking. People are moving forward with their ordinary lives, but for me, nothing feels ordinary anymore. Astor shifts in her crib, small breaths puffing against the blanket. I study her tiny frame, the way her fingers twitch in dreams. For a heartbeat, I think about rolling over and pretending I could live today like any other day. But the weight of what I decided last night presses too heavy on my chest. I get up, feet brushing the worn rug, and head to the kitchen. The smell of coffee fills the air, bitter and grounding. My palms shake as I set the cup down. Then I pull the folder from the shelf. The folder I've been building quietly for years. Receipts, voicemails, contracts, and documents I sometimes hated myself for keeping. Evidence, proof, pieces of me I refuse to let disappear. I set up the laptop on my living room table. Adjust the angle so the light through the window catches just right, clear enough to show my face, soft enough to remind the world I'm not a machine, just a woman who has survived. Mrs. Halverson had helped me make the calls last night. She said people needed to hear me, not rumors. And today, the journalist arrives through a video connection, voice professional but not cold. "This will burn bridges you can't rebuild," they tell me, their tone even but edged with warning. I glance toward Astor. Her lips are parted in sleep, her little chest rising and falling with the rhythm of innocence. I nod. My voice doesn't crack when I answer. "They burned those bridges years ago. I'm just holding the match." So I begin. I tell my story. I don't rant. I don't sob. I let my voice stay steady, because steady cuts deeper than anger ever could. I speak about storms, both the ones outside and the ones behind closed doors, locked rooms, whispered betrayals, the sting of being told I wasn't enough. I describe late-night sewing designs until my fingers bled, feeding clients drafts while my family mocked my work. I describe holding my daughter against me, wondering if anyone would ever see that I mattered. On the journalist's screen, evidence appears. Bank statements showing accounts in my name drained without my consent. Voicemails where my mother told me to disappear for a while, let Callista shine. Texts where I offered help only to be met with silence. I lean forward when I speak about the night in the rain, about the porch, about Aster trembling against my chest while they laughed through the window. This isn't about hurt alone, I say, my voice low but carrying. This is about truth. The journalist nods, eyes serious, recording every word. When the interview ends, I upload the video. Within hours, hashtags bloom across social media like wildflowers after a storm. Letterin. Truth in the rain. Strangers share their own stories of betrayal, of being shut out by the people who were supposed to protect them. Old neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years post memories. She painted our siding when no one else would. She fixed our roof the day the storm hit. We laughed around the fireplace while her family ignored her. Their words make me ache. Not from pain, this time from recognition. But recognition always has a cost. Church announcements roll out. A statement carefully worded. We regret any misunderstanding. Cold, bureaucratic, designed to absolve without admitting. My mother appears on social media, face frozen in that stoic, polished expression. Callista deletes entire rows of photos, her curated life unraveling. Lindsay loses influencer contracts, sponsors quietly back away. I watch from my living room window as their empire of appearances begins to tilt. You built it on sand, I whisper to myself. Then the phone rings. My lawyer's voice is calm, but I can hear the weight in it. He tells me he's found something, a mortgage document signed under my name. My stomach flips, but not from surprise, from recognition. He says the words, felony fraud. I grip the couch until my knuckles ache. But the strangest thing happens. I don't panic. I don't feel the earth fall away. It's almost relief, because I always knew the cracks were there, that the truth was waiting to surface. Now it has a name. Messages continue to pour in. People I never expected reach out. Neighbors bringing groceries, old classmates sending encouragement, strangers telling me their own stories of betrayal and survival. Some cry as they write, some rage. But all of them remind me, this fight isn't only mine. That night, the sky opens again. Rain lashes the roof, drumming against the windows in steady rhythm. Aster sleeps on my lap, her tiny hand curled around my finger. I close my eyes and let the sound wash through me. The pain is still there, bright and raw, but beneath it lies something steadier, stronger. My lawyer calls once more, voice quieter now. This one document, he says, this proves they forged your name. The mortgage, signed illegally. That's felony fraud. I breathe in. Out. My fingers tighten around Aster's hand. The storm outside thunders, but I don't flinch. I let the truth settle in my bones, heavier and yet freeing. I told them, I whisper, almost to myself. The rain would remember. And tonight, it does. I stare down at the phone, reading the message from the lawyer. The last few lines echo loud in my skull. You get restitution. You get the protection order. I blink, push aside the stack of files, and drag myself out of bed. Aster is awake, rubbing sleepy eyes. I wrap her in a blanket, then pull on jeans and a sweater. Morning light filters through curtains. Quiet calm. We drive to the courthouse. The engine hums beneath us. I hold Aster's small hand so tight I feel bones. I remind myself, this is what truth looks like. No theatrics, just facts. The weather is cool, a soft breeze. I take a deep breath. Inside, the courtroom feels both foreign and familiar. Sunlight slants through high windows. Wooden benches, the judge's bench, the emblem on the wall. All symbols of judgments that matter. My parents are there. Mother, still prim, holding her shoulders high. Father, jaw tight. Callista is absent. She claimed she had commitments. Lindsay wasn't seen. Gratitude hums under my ribs because her absence tells me she can't face the truth. I rise when my name is called. I step forward. I speak clearly. Everything I do, voice steady, eyes open, hands showing nothing but honesty. I recount questions about mortgage deeds, about designs I signed, about money I never saw that was supposed to pass through me. I talk of the sleepless nights, the years they said I had nothing despite having built the foundation they praised in others' words. Over the weeks, evidence has been submitted. Bank statements, voicemails, design sketches, notes from clients who can confirm my work, witnesses who remember. The judge listens. She asks a question. Mrs. Vane, do you deny knowing about your daughter's contributions? Mother opens her mouth, then closes it. No answer. Finally, the judge speaks. Miss Natalia, you are entitled to partial damages, and the court grants you a restraining order. Full protection moving forward. Something inside me uncoils. It is vindication, cold, solid, overdue. After court, we leave the room. Aster on my hip. Journal in hand. Media vans cluster outside, asking for a word, a quote. I pause. I don't speak. I let my face, quiet, resolved, answer. My parents follow behind like shadows, avoiding cameras. The rest of that day is an echo. Neighbors I never expected to see shake my hand, whisper apologies. An older woman I used to help at the church stops me. I'm sorry we didn't believe you. I nod. It's enough. That evening, we move into our new home. Smaller yard, simple siding, but ours. I paint a wall for Aster, hang pictures she colored. I can hear her gentle breathing. Sleep comes easier, because here there are no locked doors, no whispered laughter behind curtains. Sunday morning, church bells chime. I dress quietly, find Mom there, outside the church steps, arms crossed. She sees me across the lawn. I slow, then stop. She approaches, hesitant. Please, she says, voice tight. I just want to talk. I look at her, at the woman who once locked me out. My heart stirs with memories, rain-soaked wood, mocking windows, the smell of wet fabric. But the girl who trembled has been replaced. I steady my chin. You had years to talk. I needed you in the rain. I don't need this now. I turn away. Aster's small hand in mine. Mother watched me go back to my car, alone but whole. Later, I sit at my desk in the new home, my journal open, candle lit. Across the page, I write, They left me to drown, but I taught myself to swim. Pen strokes slow, meaningful. At night, after tucking Aster in, she asks softly, Why don't we visit Grandma? I sit beside her, pull her close. I brush her cheek. I answer, Because love doesn't lock you out in the rain. She looks at me, eyes wide. I smile at her, honest. Before the light fades, I pause at my bedroom window. The rain begins again, soft patter on the roof. Not the storm I once feared. Now I welcome it. I watch as drops run down the glass, each one a little mirror. I let them wash over me, not to drown, but to remember who I am. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love and protect you are the ones who push you into the storm. But it's what you do in that storm that defines who you become. Natalia didn't just survive, she rose. Her story isn't just about pain, it's about power, truth, and reclaiming your voice. What would you have done in her shoes? Have you ever been silenced by family, or found the courage to speak up? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of resilience, justice, and truth. Your voice matters too.